Welcome back, football fanatics. Scott Gulbransen along our NFL managing editor, David Kull. We're here to talk about the game's biggest matchup, I should say the week's biggest matchup. That is the Dallas Cowboys versus the Philadelphia Eagles, 9-3 versus 10-2. And David, let's jump into this one because you have a great piece up on Sportsnaut talking about the Cowboys. And the Cowboys, yeah, they have a 9-3 record. But, and there's a big but in there, and I'm sorry, Cowboy fans, got to get it here, and that is the fact that they really haven't beaten anybody. They've beaten one team with a winning record. Is this game going to do a lot for them if they can get past the Eagles? Because, David, I just haven't been impressed with who they've beaten, even though they've had some great performances by Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb.
Well, one way to look at it is you can't really fault the Cowboys too much because they're not the ones that come up with the schedule. All they can do is play the teams that are in front of them from one week to another for 17 weeks. And you just try to do the best you can with those 17 games. It just so happens that along the way, the Cowboys have played a lot of teams that have losing records. So they really only have one win this season over a team with a winning record. And that was last week against the Seahawks, who are now a 500 team. So if you look at it that way, if you take the teams right now, currently, who have winning records, if you just put them all together, the combined winning percentage of the game, the nine wins that the Cowboys have of those teams is 33%. So if you took 33% to make it relevant and say, if you extrapolate that over 13 games through week 13, which is where we are in the season right now, that's equivalent to a 4-8 team. So really the average victory that the Cowboys have is over a 4-8 team, like the New York Giants, whom they've beaten twice this year. So
Yeah, No, I was going to say absolutely. I mean, you look at it too. I mean, their losses, except for the Cardinals' loss. Now, the Cardinals, of course, not a good team, but they play hard, and that was an anomaly, perhaps. But you look at who they've lost to, the Eagles and the 49ers, by massive margins. I think it was 84-29 was the total score between both of those teams, the 49ers on victory there. And you look at the Cowboys. The Cowboys were one of the teams, I thought they would be perhaps a Super Bowl team, but the loss of Dalton Schultz at tight end, the loss of Ezekiel Elliott at running back, and kind of the depth there. Talk about some of the issues they've had and why they've maybe not been as dominant as people thought they might be.
Well, they have been dominant in the games that they need to dominate. For instance, if you were playing a weaker team, you should dominate the other team. They have 7 wins this year by 20 points or more, and 4 wins by 30 points or more this year. So they've been able to put big points on the board against those teams that they should score against. It's just those teams the teams with the winning record, as we've talked about, the San Francisco 49ers, they got absolutely destroyed by the 49ers in a game where you would have thought going into that game, they have huge incentive to beat the 49ers. They want to get payback from last year's playoff game that they played against them, and even the one year before, because they eliminated the Cowboys 2 straight years. You think they're going to come in on a high, and what happens? They lay an egg in that game. Then they have the Eagles in week 9 playing in Philadelphia, trying to fight for supremacy in the NFC East. And what happens? At the end of the game, they're driving for a score. They get down to the 6-yard line there. And then in the final 27 seconds, they get an untimely sack. They get 2 penalties on them. And then last play of the game, the CeeDee Lamb falls short, fumbles, and game's over. They lose by 5 points. So they imploded in that game. So they've had 2 opportunities so far to prove that they are a quality team. Wait, don't get me wrong. They are a quality team.
Yeah.
They are a very good football team. But have they proven yet that they are Super Bowl contenders? I don't really think they have, and they won't until they beat a team like the Eagles this weekend. And then when you have after the Eagles this weekend is that the schedule gets tougher. Now they've played all the lightweights earlier in the year, but now they're going to play all the heavyweights going forward, because after this they play the Bills, who are 6-6, but at least it's a 500 team, right? And then after that, they play the Dolphins. We all know about the Dolphins, number 1 offense in football right now, 9-3, high-flying Dolphins. And then after that, they get the Lions. So we're going to find out what the Cowboys are made of over the next couple of weeks, but it starts right now, this week with the Eagles, and they need to get it done on their home field, where they are 6-0 this year, and where they've beaten the Eagles the last 5 straight times.
Yeah, and it's I think for Cowboy fans, it's a great opportunity, because if the Cowboys are true contenders to win the NFL and to win the Super Bowl, they will do well down the stretch here. And obviously, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb playing really well. Let's flip the coin now and go to the Eagles. Eagles coming off, of course, the tough loss last week. And it's not the same team as last year. Look, the Eagles are still good, just like we were talking about with the Cowboys. But you look at Jalen Hurts, who's been hurt, and whether or not he's a full 100% in what he's able to do. We also see the fact that the defense which carried so much weight for them last year, still a good defense, but very vulnerable to the run at linebacker. They even picked up some folks this week to make sure that they had some more bodies. But if you look at that Philly defense and the Philly team overall, David, not really the same team. Still very good, just like you said with the Cowboys. But is this also a massive game for them going on the road, coming off the loss that they just had?
Yes, absolutely, Scott. Well, if you go back to something that Bill Parcells used to say about your record, you are what your record says you are, right? And they're a 10-2 team. So they still have the best record in football, which should speak to them being the best team in football. Although last weekend, the 49ers proved that to be wrong. 49ers being 9-3, of course, that's close enough. But anyway, what happened this last weekend was they got exposed. The 49ers came in there. Of course, the first quarter, the Niners only had -6 yards, I think, total offense in the first quarter. But after that, over the final 3 quarters, they just absolutely dominated the Eagles. They scored on 6 straight possessions, not field goals, touchdowns on 6 straight possessions. That's almost unheard of against any team, let alone the Eagles, who are one of the best teams in the league, as we've already talked about. The Eagles come in, they have the 22nd ranked defense, and that's kind of how they looked last week against the 49ers. The Niners were able to do whatever they wanted against them in the passing game, in the running game. I think the Niners ran for almost 150 yards in that game with Christian McCaffrey and company. And they're going to face a team this weekend, the Cowboys, who are ranked 3rd on defense. They're ranked 5th on offense. They're a very complete football team, just like the 49ers were. They're going to be in trouble this week unless they are able to come together and fix some of the issues that they've had. I don't know if they can in a week's time, but this is going to be a tough environment for them going on the road, playing in Dallas, where, like I said earlier, they've lost 5 straight times.
Yeah, and Jalen Hurts, I mean, listen, for him to be the complete quarterback that he is, he has to be able to run the ball, and he hasn't been able to do that. That knee injury has bothered him. He's had the sleeve on it. We hear each week that he's getting better. But then in the game in the rain last week, it didn't go so well for him. He couldn't get him unhinged until the second half, and then he kind of came alive. But when you're playing a good team like the Cowboys, who can now put up points on the board, especially with how Dak and CeeDee Lamb have been doing, it's going to be hard for them to do that. Dave, before we close out, what do you how does this one go? I mean, everybody's going to be watching this game. It reminds me of last week too with the big matchups. How do you see this one going down? Is Dallas at home just going to be too much for this Philly team that's kind of looking for the opportunity to get healthy and get a big win?
I still think overall, if you were to play on a neutral field, that the Eagles would win. I still think they're a better football team all the way around than the Cowboys. But this weekend, playing in Dallas, I would have to favor the Cowboys in this game. I think the Cowboys finally prove that they are the Super Bowl contenders that a lot of people have thought they are, and I think they'll get it done this week. And I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to come down to the last minutes of the game, but I think Dak Prescott and company will get it done. I'm picking about a 38-34 score for the Cowboys.
There you go. I like that prediction. I think you're right about the Cowboys. I think it'll be pretty close, but I do think being at home and being in Jerry World is just such a big deal. And I think the CeeDee Lamb Dak Prescott combination has a great game as well. I think they're going to pass the ball, and I think that Philadelphia is going to have trouble keeping up with the offense, even if they're scoring themselves. So that's great. Make sure you read David's piece up on the Cowboys this week, and not only that, but we have so much more about this game up on Sportsnaut.com. So make sure you follow what's going on up there, including videos, including great written content from the staff here at Sportsnaut.com. David, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
All right, everybody, we'll see you next time. And don't forget, enjoy the game and go to Sportsnaut for more coverage. We'll talk to you soon.